I should have known something was wrong when Rachel started bringing real estate agents to inspect the rental house I'd lived in for 5 years. The house belonged to my late father-in-law, and I'd been paying fair market rent, $2,000, since my husband passed away 2 years ago. Just routine property assessment, Rachel claimed, but her predatory smile said otherwise. She'd never forgiven me for being her brother's poor choice of a wife, even though Jack and I had been blissfully happy until cancer took him at 32. Then I lost my job at the tech startup where I'd worked for 7 years. Mass layoffs, nothing personal, just corporate restructuring. I had savings and was already interviewing, but Rachel pounced like a shark smelling blood. New lease terms, she announced, dropping a thick document on my kitchen table. Rents going up to $6,000 monthly, starting next month. I almost choked on my coffee. That's triple the current rate, and way above market value for this area. It's my inheritance, Rachel said, examining her manicured nails. Dad left the house to me in his will. I can charge what I want. I turned to my mother-in-law, Sandra, who had come along, supposedly as a mediator. Sandra, this is ridiculous. You know Jack wanted me to have a home here. Jack's not here anymore, dear, Sandra said with fake sympathy. And Rachel's right, it's her property now. Maybe it's time for you to move on. The subtext was clear. They wanted the poor widow out of their prestigious family. What they didn't know was that I'd received a call just yesterday from my grandmother's lawyer. Gran had passed away last month, leaving me her historic Victorian mansion in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. The same mansion Rachel had been trying to buy for years. You can't do this, I said, keeping my face carefully neutral. The current lease isn't up for 3 months. Rachel's smile turned cruel. Actually, there's a clause about employment status. If you lose your job, I can modify terms with 30 days' notice. Page 12, paragraph 3. I pulled out my phone, pretending to check my bank account while actually texting my lawyer. I'll need to review this with legal counsel. Why waste money on lawyers? Sandra interjected. We're family. Just accept that it's time to find somewhere more suitable for your circumstances. Rachel couldn't resist twisting the knife. There are some nice apartments on the east side. You know, where people of your background usually live. My phone buzzed, my lawyer confirming what I suspected. Rachel's clause was unenforceable under state law. I could fight this, but looking at their smug faces, I had a better idea. You're right, I said slowly. I should move somewhere more suitable. Their triumphant expressions were almost comical. I'm so glad you're being reasonable, Sandra said. We can help you find a nice little. No need, I interrupted. I've already got a place. I just need to finalize some paperwork. Rachel's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Where exactly? Oh, you know the area, I said casually. Oakwood Heights. The color drained from Rachel's face. Oakwood Heights was the city's most prestigious address, and the location of my grandmother's mansion. You're lying, she spluttered. There's no way you could afford. Actually, I inherited it. You remember my grandmother's Victorian? The one you tried to buy last year. Sandra's coffee cup clattered against her saucer. Eleanor Brighton was your grandmother. The same, I confirmed. She left me everything, house, grounds, and some interesting documentation about your attempts to pressure her into selling Rachel. Rachel's face went from white to red. She was asking ridiculous terms, demanding the house stay in her family line, requiring approval for any future sale. Because she knew about people like you, I said quietly, people who destroy family homes for profit. I stood up, gathering my keys. I'll be out by the end of the week. Good luck finding a tenant willing to pay triple the market rate. Now wait, Sandra backpedaled frantically. We can discuss this reasonably. Like you reasonably tried to evict your son's widow? I picked up Rachel's lease and ripped it in half. I think we're done discussing. Rachel grabbed my arm. You can't just walk away. That mansion should have been mine. I had plans. And I have security cameras recording your assault right now, I said calmly, pointing to my phone. Want to explain to the police why you're attacking your brother's widow? She released me like I burned her. Jack would be ashamed of both of you, I said, heading for the door. But don't worry. I'll make sure his father's house finds a worthy tenant. In fact, I know a lovely refugee family looking for a home. I'm sure they'll appreciate the current market rate rent. You wouldn't dare, Rachel shrieked. This is a prestigious neighborhood. Watch me, I replied. Oh, and Rachel, My grandmother's lawyer would love to discuss those threatening emails you sent her last year. The ones where you promised to make her life difficult if she didn't sell to you. I left them standing in my kitchen, Rachel's face purple with rage and Sandra looking like she'd swallowed a lemon. In my car, I finally let myself shake with the anger I'd been suppressing. Then I called my friend Maria, whose family had recently immigrated. Hey, remember how you were looking for a rental in a good school district? I think I found you the perfect place. The next week revealed just how deep Rachel's real estate manipulation went. As I moved into my grandmother's mansion, my lawyer uncovered a pattern of property schemes that would have made my late father-in-law ashamed. Your sister-in-law has been buying up family properties and hiking rents to force out long-term tenants, Andrew explained, spreading documents across my new mahogany desk. Then she flips them for luxury developments. She's displaced 12 families in the last year alone. The numbers were infuriating. 3 elderly cousins forced out of their family homes. 5 properties risen for luxury condos. 2 historic buildings demolished for parking lots. All while claiming she was preserving family legacy. But her attempt to block Maria's family from renting my old house revealed Rachel's true colors. This is a historic neighborhood, she argued at the Housing Association meeting. We can't just let anyone move in. You mean hard-working immigrants with perfect credit and professional careers? I asked sweetly. Maria's a pediatric surgeon. Her husband's a software engineer. Their credit score is higher than yours, Rachel. The Housing Association president looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Harrison, if you're suggesting we discriminate based on... Of course not, Rachel backpedaled quickly. I just meant property values. Which is why I'm keeping the rent at market rate, I interrupted. Unlike some people who triple rents to force out family members. That's when Sandra tried to play peacemaker again. She showed up at my new home, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Dear, can't we discuss this reasonably? Rachel's just trying to protect the family's interests. By evicting the family, I gestured to my grandmother's photos on the wall. Gran left me this house because she knew Rachel would destroy it, like she's destroying every other family property she gets her hands on. That's business, Sandra sniffed. You wouldn't understand. I understand perfectly. I pulled out the files my lawyer had compiled. Like how Rachel threatened 3 elderly relatives with eviction unless they sold to her below market value, or how she's been using shell companies to hide her property flipping. Sandra's face went pale. Where did you get those? Gran kept records. She knew what Rachel was doing to the family properties. That's why her will had strict conditions about keeping this house in the direct family line. The doorbell rang. Maria and her family had arrived to sign their lease. Sandra looked horrified as they entered. A successful, well-dressed professional family that shattered all her prejudices. This is Dr. Maria Suarez, I introduced. She'll be renting Jack's house at the original rate. And unlike Rachel, she actually plans to be a good neighbor. Maria smiled warmly, but her eyes were steel. We've heard so much about the interesting property management in this neighborhood. That's when Rachel burst in, waving more papers. I've filed an injunction. You can't rent tow. She stopped short, finally seeing Maria in her designer suit and pearls. It's hard to cry property values when your potential tenant looks more sophisticated than you. You were saying? I asked innocently. Rachel's injunction failed spectacularly. Not only did the judge throw it out, but her discriminatory comments triggered an investigation into her other properties. The findings were devastating. Pattern of discriminatory rental practices. Illegal rent hikes targeting vulnerable tenants. Multiple violations of tenant protection laws. False claims on rezoning applications. Your sister-in-law has been running quite the operation, my lawyer said, using family properties to build a luxury real estate empire regardless of who gets hurt. But the real bombshell came from an unexpected source. Sandra's housekeeper contacted me with copies of emails between Rachel and Sandra. Mom, once we get rid of Jack's widow, we can demolish his house for the new development. She's the last obstacle to our expansion plans. Patience, dear. We'll price her out soon enough. Poor thing can't afford lawyer fees to fight us. Reading their casual discussion of destroying my home, the last connection to my beloved Jack, something in me hardened. I called an emergency family meeting, not just Rachel and Sandra, but all the relatives she pressured out of their homes. In my grandmother's formal dining room, I laid out the evidence. Rachel's been systematically destroying family properties for profit. Here's proof of how she's done it: threatening elderly relatives, using illegal lease terms, hiding behind shell companies, violating zoning laws, discriminating against tenants. Rachel tried to bluster. This is ridiculous. I'm preserving family assets. By erasing family history? Cousin Emma, age 75, stood up. You forced me out of my childhood home by tripling the rent. Now it's a parking lot. One by one, relatives shared similar stories. Sandra sat silent, her social mask cracking as she realized the damage her daughter had done to their family. There's only one way to fix this, I announced. Rachel returns all family properties to their original owners at the original prices, or we take this evidence to the authorities. You can't prove anything, Rachel snapped. I played the recording from my phone. Her conversation with Sandra about demolishing Jack's house. Want to bet? Rachel's downfall came not with a bang, but with a series of devastating whimpers. The family meeting in my grandmother's dining room was just the beginning. As relatives realized the full scope of her schemes, decades of fear-enforced silence finally broke. She told me I'd die homeless if I didn't sell. Aunt Martha revealed, her hands shaking, said she'd make sure no nursing home would take me. I sold my house for half its value. Uncle George, still grieving his demolished childhood home, added she promised to preserve it. 2 weeks after I sold, bulldozers arrived. Now it's a valet parking lot for her luxury condos. Each story was meticulously documented in my grandmother's files. Gran hadn't just been a sweet old lady who refused to sell her mansion. She'd been gathering evidence for years, protecting the family's true legacy. Sandra tried one last time to salvage her daughter's reputation. Rachel was just being business savvy. By destroying family homes, I interrupted, pulling out my final piece of evidence, like how she planned to demolish the house where her own brother died. The room fell silent as I played the full recording. Rachel's voice. Once we get rid of his widow, we'll level it. Jack's dead anyway. Who cares about preserving his memory? Sandra. Darling, be careful what you put in writing. Rachel. Please, she can't afford lawyers. We'll price her out, demolish his house, and build something worthy of our family name. The family's reaction was immediate and severe. Cousin Emma, the family matriarch since Bran's death, stood up. Rachel Harrison, you are hereby excluded from all family business dealings. Any properties obtained through coercion must be returned to their original owners at the original purchase price. You can't do that, Rachel shrieked. I have contracts. Fraudulent contracts, my lawyer interjected smoothly, obtained under duress and in violation of elder protection laws. Would you like to discuss this in court? The restoration process began immediately. Aunt Martha got her house back. Uncle George's property was rezoned for historical preservation. 3 other family homes were returned to their original owners. All Rachel's development permits were challenged and reviewed. But the real karma came from an unexpected source. Remember Maria, my new tenant? Turns out she had connections at the state attorney's office. They're very interested in patterns of housing discrimination and elder abuse, she mentioned casually, especially when perpetrated by licensed real estate agents. Rachel's real estate license was suspended pending investigation. Her luxury development projects froze as investors backed out. The carefully constructed empire built on family destruction crumbled. Sandra, watching her daughter's schemes collapse, finally showed a glimmer of conscience. I enabled this, she admitted quietly during a private meeting. I was so focused on our family's prestige, I forgot about actual family. Jack never forgot, I reminded her. He wanted that house preserved as a home, not an investment. Looking around my grandmother's mansion, now hosting weekly family dinners for relatives rebuilding their connections, I realized Gran's true legacy. It wasn't just about preserving buildings, but protecting the family's soul. Rachel made one final attempt at manipulation. She arrived at my door in tears, claiming bankruptcy. I'll be homeless, she wailed. Don't you care about family? Funny. I replied. That's exactly what your victims said when you evicted them. There's a nice apartment complex on the east side. You know, where people of your circumstances usually live. Throwing her own words back at her felt justified. Sometimes karma needs a little push. The family properties were restored with new binding conditions. Must remain residential homes. Cannot be sold without family council approval. Rent controls to prevent future exploitation. Priority given to family members in need. Maria's family proved to be perfect tenants, bringing new life to Jack's old house. Their children play in the same garden where he used to read, preserving his memory better than any luxury development ever could. Last week, we held a family reunion in my grandmother's, my garden. Relatives who hadn't spoken in years shared stories, rebuilding bonds Rachel had tried to break. Sandra came, subdued but trying to make amends. Jack would have loved this, she said, watching the children play. Family together, homes preserved, memories honored. Yes, I agreed. That's why Gran left me this house. Not for its value, but for its heart. Rachel didn't attend. Last I heard, she's renting a small apartment, her real estate license revoked. Her development empire collapsed. Sometimes, losing everything is the only way to learn what matters. As for me, I'm honoring both Jack's and Gran's legacies. The mansion hosts family events, provides temporary shelter for relatives in need, and stands as a reminder that true family wealth isn't measured in property values. Uncle George summed it up best. Rachel tried to build an empire by destroying homes. You're rebuilding family by preserving them. That's a legacy worth more than all her luxury developments combined. And Jack's house? It's filled with children's laughter again, preserved for future generations, protected by family love instead of property laws. Exactly as he would have wanted. That's the best revenge of all.